For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. On infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections.
If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious.
Violence and vandalism is being led by Antifa and other radical left-wing groups who are terrorizing the innocent, destroying jobs, hurting businesses, and burning down buildings. They are coming after me because I am fighting for you. That's what's happening.
Greetings, fellow thought criminals, and thank you for joining the insurrection. I'm Michael Lauer, and today I'm joined by relentless Bill Robinson from Newsmax. How you doing this morning, Bill?
I'm doing great, Michael. Thank you again for having me, and I'm just amped up to attack all these different stories of treachery and treason.
Oh, yeah, we're going to get to those here in a minute. But before we get started, I actually got a video I want to run that just didn't quite fit into the lineup otherwise, and that's Hakeem Jeffries' blue screening after being read the facts of what the left is currently dealing with, or what they're trying to put forward here in the U.S., and actual facts on the state of the country under Biden versus today. So actually, we'll just jump into it. I'll go ahead and run this video, and then we'll get started.
I don't know about deflation and costs coming down. All I can tell you is that the inflation rate itself was 2.7% in the most recent read year over year, versus it got to a high of 9% under Biden. Stocks are at record highs. Unemployment is 4.2%. That's full employment. The GDP was 3%. The border is actually secure. We've got trade deals with EU, Japan, many more in the works, and trillions of dollars of foreign investment coming here. Iran's nuclear ambitions have been set back indefinitely. And I just wrote down a few things. So I just have to ask you, where is the calamity that you're talking about? And it almost seems like for Democrats, socialism is the answer to these problems, or I don't know, what, an end of democracy or something. We just don't get it.
Nothing to say. And sorry, I shouldn't have cut that off so early, so you guys could just see him staring at the camera blankly for a few seconds.
Oh, he's beneath contempt. I mean, they're talking about inflation to him. He has no concept, right? Like they call him Dollar Store Obama, and Jay Jones as well is competing for the main title of Dollar Store Obama. But due to inflation, really, we got to cut that down to Nickel Store Obama, because they're both so worthless. Penny Store Obama? Oh, wait, Trump's outlawed pennies. Or not outlawed them. He's trying to remove them. And who needs those annoying pennies anyway? These guys are both pennies. And I'm struck now by just watching Jeffries there. We need to start calling him Sleepy Jeffries, because the eyelids are so, it's like he should prop them open with toothpicks or something, because he's always looking very sleepy. Like, where's your prayer carpet, Hakeem?
Well, yeah, I think, they're just pinned into a corner right now. Like, there's no good move for the left. They're on the wrong side of almost every issue. It's starting to catch up. Jeffries can't control his own party. They're just falling apart right and disintegrating right in front of us, and most of the country's onto this. We're going to talk about basically most of our episode is about the leftists either siding with violence or taking the wrong side on every issue today. But I guess before we get started or pull up the rest of our stories, there is one other item too. Is today, everybody stay safe. You guys are in New York, Chicago, DC, LA, or any of these other cities that are supposed to have the October 7th protest today. Again, the Hamas wing of the Democrat Party is once again embracing violence. And I know in Chicago specifically, I believe it's either 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. They're supposed to shut down the roads in like 10 parts of the city, and then they're having a big rally out in front of the Israeli embassy. So I'm sure that's going to turn violent, especially with all these other Antifa wackos from the region joining forces with Chicago to fight ISIS oppression. I think it's Kenosha, Racine, Detroit, and a number of other Antifa cells are all supposed to be converging on Chicago to join in the festivities today. So I'm sure that's only going to lead to violence.
Well, I'm hoping that it'll be a great big nothing burger with there only being a limited amount of psychopaths and homoerotic degenerates showing up. But just in case it's not, let's pray. And the left hates it when we're praying, right? They're like, oh, and they like to use it. They break it out whenever some Democrat gets their justice served up. But let's pray for the ICE people, the police, all our law enforcement, and let's pray for the counter protesters that will be there with their Trump hats and chanting USA. Let's pray for everybody to be safe there. And I also pray for a lot of Antifa protesters / rioters being dragged off hogtied. So, I mean, that as long as they don't get hurt, let's drag them off as many as we can, hogtied.
Yeah, I liked the cart they were using in that one video. I think that was out of Portland with the fat Antifa protester that refused to walk. They threw him on a baggage cart and drug him in to arrest him. Grady Judd, though, is out there with something I think a lot of these people on the left need to hear. If you allow anarchists and criminals to run wild in your community, people will die. Florida Sheriff Grady Judd released a statement after Chicago police refused to answer call from ICE agents under attack. By the way, I probably should have grabbed this morning. I didn't think about it till just now. But they've released this 911 call now with this dispatcher, like, can't believe she's having to tell the police to turn around and stand down after initially putting out a call to all available units to go in, intercede, and protect the ICE convoy that's getting rammed by 10 Antifa vehicles. And then she gets told that the higher ups don't want to tell the police not to respond, and she's just sounds like she's beside herself. She can't believe it, but double checks that's what she's supposed to do, and then relays the orders. But it's absolutely disgusting. But Grady Judd's exactly right, and I'm going to try to play this video here real quick for you guys.
Hello, I'm Sheriff Grady Judd.
I knew that was going to happen.
I spent my entire adult life in law enforcement.
See, I apologize. The video itself is messed up. Maybe we'll be able to get that tomorrow. The audio is playing, the video isn't. But he's right on the money that the longer we allow this to continue, the worse things are going to get. We're already seeing anarchy in a lot of these cities, but as long as the Democrats refuse to enforce the law, it's amplifying and protecting these criminals in our streets, as we've seen, and it is only going to spread, only going to get worse. Kind of like what I mentioned a few minutes ago, with more showing up in Chicago. These protests are only going to continue to build as long as we continue to send the message in these cities that this is not only acceptable, but they're literally promoting it.
Well, Sheriff Grady Judd is my kind of sheriff. I think he's a Trump type sheriff. So much so that, I think the northern sewers, the sumps that are spewing sewage all over their residents, should start recruiting southern sheriffs to come up and run their cities. They'd be in a lot better shape over the long run. And of course, we've been seeing him come out and talk. He gave just a stellar press conference on one of these insane moonbats. Can I steal your word temporarily?
Yeah.
Who committed a crime, and he just gave all the background and just weighed in and editorialized on what an awful person this was, which is what more law enforcement people need to do. They need to stop with where it's an active investigation. We can't talk about this complete idiot who murdered a bunch of people. So he's great. I really support him. I think I wonder if he's related to Winona Judge or one of the Christian gospel families. But I think you also touched base on the stand down order where the operator was incredulous. Yeah. So these sanctuary cities, just declaring yourself a sanctuary city, but also working against ICE, refusing to support them when they're surrounded by people who are trying to kill them. All of these things violate a little thing called the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution. And these people think they can make their own laws barring the federal government from coming in. And with the Insurrection Clause, this is the main thing that President Trump can stand on and will win every single time like clockwork in the Supreme Court. The Supremacy Clause says, quote, that the federal law is the supreme law of the land. And anytime some idiot in a state or city or county or whatever makes a law that is contrary to federal law, that the federal law reigns supreme and that the local law is invalidated. So all this stuff, this sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, all this kind of stuff, it needs to stop immediately, and it will stop when Trump takes it to the Supreme Court. They just want to mess around in the lower courts and get their wins, which they're doing, and then it all gets abolished when it goes to the Supreme Court.
Well, yeah, and I think they even know it at this point. Like, they have no hope in winning in the long run. But yeah, you can get a judge somewhere to put a stand down order on this or that, or file an injunction. And half the time, they don't even expect to win there, but they will get their injunction, shut things down for 3 or 4 weeks. Well, the courts then decide ultimately that Trump does have the authority to do X, Y, or Z. I mean, it's frustrating that he goes along with these judges' decisions, but in the long run, he does always win once it gets either moved to the higher court or sometimes up to the Supreme Court. I have noticed, though, over the last several weeks, now Trump is getting relief when it goes up to the appeals court, that they're no longer making him fight all the way to the Supreme Court on a lot of these issues. And I think a lot of that's they're just finally getting sick of getting these decisions handed down and being embarrassed by the Supreme Court over and over again, especially when the liberal justices minus Ketanji Brown Jackson have sided with Trump on so many of these issues. I'm sure they're sick of doing it too. I'm sure every time they have to, it makes their skin crawl. But there's a few that, at least on some things, understand the law is the law, the rules are the rules. Everybody's got to play by the same one. And then there's Ketanji Brown Jackson, which I'm not sure she understands how to read. But Chicago mayor creates ICE-free zones meant to impede federal agents. White House fires off brutal response. Yeah, again, these are just imaginary zones. The mayor of a city cannot say, federal officers can't operate in these ICE-free zones. Again, I don't know where he thinks this is going to hold up in court or how it's even going to be enforced. But again, this is more like just leftist fantasies that, they want to be seen as, they're protecting. I mean, it's exactly what we've said over and over here. The left thinks they're protecting their multicultural democracy from Trump's fascism. But we don't live in a multicultural democracy. That's not the real world. The real world is the Constitution and the rule of law. And this is just another stunt by Brandon Johnson that's ultimately going to cause probably more people to get hurt and more people to get arrested.
I am so sick and tired of this psycho racist DEI hire. I don't want to hear him or see him anymore. And, I'm a sinner like we all are. And it occasionally pops into my mind that I'd like to see somebody from his own party affect violence on him. I'm so tired of him and Pritzker, I'm just so tired. And in this awakening time when Democrats are finally figuring out how they've been indoctrinated and rooked and cheated, I think one of those Democrats might start taking these people out. I don't wish for it. I don't pray for it. But unfortunately, it does cross my mind when I see him and this big bloviating bag of wind, Pritzker, talking about as if they have any power at all over the federal government. Now, normally Christian conservatives are not in favor of a supremely powerful federal government. We want states' rights. We want, freedom. We want due process. We want all these kinds of things. But in this particular case, when Trump's in power, let's go federal government, because the states are not cooperating and they need to be batted down quickly.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't even think our side's asking for anything new. There's certain things the federal government is supposed to have a supremacy in. Usually the problem is the states that are essentially in rebellion, refusing to comply with federal law. And this has been an ongoing problem. It goes all the way back to Obama with the sanctuary states, basically saying, oh, well, we're just not going to listen to you within our borders. But yet, in the minute you had counties declaring themselves sanctuaries for federal gun encroachment, they're apoplectic about it. Or states having the gall to work along with ICE and help round people up. Look at all the cases they tried to stop that in Florida and Texas and other places, and again get smacked down. Because obviously local law enforcement is supposed to be assisting the feds. The problem is we've dealt with so much corruption back and forth to the last few years that our country hasn't been living under the rule of law. We need to get back to that, and that means all the way around. That means enforcing our laws, enforcing the borders, and remigration, as there says the new term, for all these people that invaded our country over the last few years. It's time to deport them. It's time to deport especially these violent criminals who, again, that's the main people that are being rounded up right now are violent criminals. And the left's standing in the way of that.
Well, when people get hurt, as you pointed out, when people are getting hurt, lives are getting destroyed, small children are getting shot and harmed, obviously the federal government needs to step in. Bless you. And I've got to say that, the Supreme Court weighing in on Trump's side is not because they like Trump so much. It's quite the opposite. But they just see the strength and the value of the arguments on Trump's side. And also, as you pointed out, the federal appeals and the underlying courts, none of those judges particularly like and tend to feel humiliated when they get destroyed by a Supreme Court decision and all their decisions are invalidated. So look for the next one to be what the left is calling birthright citizenship. We shouldn't let them control our words like that. It's not birthright citizenship. It's anchor babies. That's what it is. It's the anchor baby decision will be coming around shortly. And they keep talking about, to protect the slaves and everything. They don't care about the slaves. They never have. They've never cared about the descendants of slaves. Repatriation is a total fraud. Repatriation should be happening more, but reparations is a total fraud. And it's all just to pander to their supposed captive audience of voters. So I really think that, we need to stop taking their words and using their terminology, because the media spoon feeds us this kind of thing, about birthright citizenship. Well, that implies that these people have a right to come here and drop their babies and have their babies be citizens, and then the parents are citizens by extension. No, this is anchor babies, and it's got to be stopped. And I have a feeling Supreme Court is going to weigh in and say, nope, you're wrong again, left.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we don't have Amy Coney Barrett or somebody else sabotage us again. That's my real concern there, is she has sided with the pro-immigration side on a number of other cases. Same with John Roberts. And you have these two weak-kneed, mealy-mouthed, alleged Republicans. And then we don't really know how many others on the bench are going to rule. Unfortunately, they have not been as reliable as we'd like. I hope Trump wins this case. We need to win this case for the future of our country. But that's the problem with a lot of these judges and justices. They don't rule on the Constitution. They don't rule on the rule of law. They look at case law and think that supersedes the Constitution now. So hopefully we get the decision we want. And the decision the country needs. But I think they finally pushed Trump to his limit. President Trump says he's ready to invoke the Insurrection Act if necessary. And if not necessary now, then when, would be my question. Because, again, this is totally out of control in these cities, making up their own rules, refusing to allow local law enforcement to work with or back ICE. I mean, this all needs to stop. And then when we have, again, judges allowing this to continue in various places like Portland and wherever else, and trying to get it stopped in Chicago now. Luckily, that failed yesterday. Something has to be done. They have to be allowed to operate. The people voted to close our borders and remove these 30 million illegal aliens. That will be done. Chicago needs to start protecting their own citizens. They shouldn't be, we shouldn't have more murders per capita than Bogota, Colombia, in any U.S. city. That's an absolute embarrassment. But, Brandon Johnson, the soft on crime policy continues to erode the social cohesion there. in Chicago, New York, LA, and other places, DC, and it doesn't take that much effort to bring these criminals off the street. And it's mostly the same people committing the crimes over and over and over again. Hauling them off our streets will be a giant improvement for everybody. So, I'm all in for Trump invoking the Insurrection Act and finally getting the job done in these blue cities.
Trump is one cagey badass. This guy is so much smarter than his hostile enemies and his foreign infiltrators to this country. He's already really invoked just by the mere threat or the occasional mention of the Insurrection Act, and he's already really invoked it. Officially invoking it almost isn't necessary, but it will help in the court cases. If any of these go to the Supreme Court, it's going to be, just case over, case closed. They're undoubtedly going to keep talking about posse comitatus, posse comitatus, these blithering idiots. They don't understand that the Insurrection Act is from like 1807, and Posse Comitatus Act came up. It's clearly important, the Posse Comitatus Act. They're just misapplying it. That came along in 1878. So the Insurrection Act is more important than Posse Comitatus Act. It came around 80 years before, and it's really to protect American citizens a lot more than the Posse Comitatus Act. Nobody wants the military going in, sent in by a Biden or Obama, a Clinton, going all the way back to Andrew Jackson. They don't want any of these psycho Democrats sending in the military to quell MAGA assemblies. And our assemblies, by the way, are always peaceful. So I just think, the insurrection, he's playing such a smart end game here. When he finally evokes it, it'll be because a court case is being on fast track to the Supreme Court, and then it'll affect all the subsequent cases that involve this kind of sanctuary city BS. This oh no, our cities are perfectly safe. No, they're not. They're certifiably unsafe, and it's just he's such a my goodness. I just think he's like, and he's not always right or anything. I don't love him. I don't think he's Jesus Christ, but I gotta say, I'm darn glad we have him. I'm happy and pleased and thankful and grateful that we have President Trump in there now. Imagine if we didn't.
I mean, if there was ever a time to invoke the Insurrection Act, at least in recent living memory, it would be right now. Well, we have a lot of these mayors and governors in open rebellion against federal law, supporting the criminals over justice and over the will of the people. So if there's ever a time to invoke it, it's right now. Like, something has to be done. This has to end. We keep talking about it. And the left keeps going further and further into rebellion against the rule of law. This can't be allowed to continue. I feel like a broken record on here. It's time for some arrests. It's time to actually start ripping these people off the streets. I mean, even now, they're making some arrests with Antifa, but even then, they're ignoring most of the crimes these people are committing when they're assaulting the ICE vehicles and blocking the road over and over again. We already have rules in place that would allow them to lock all these people up, and then they really need to be putting the terrorism charger on there, the sentence enhancer, especially if anybody's pulled in with any type of Antifa symbolism on them or signs, flags, anything like that. We've got to start actually. The talking tough is fine, whatever. I want results. I'm sick and tired of this. And this is how you do it. You invoke the Insurrection Act, and then you start rounding these people up en masse, all these deranged leftists, and those funding them, the gangs, everything else. We go and do clean sweeps in these cities, get rid of the criminals, and maybe the residents in Portland and Chicago and LA and Washington, D.C., New York, wherever else, maybe they'll finally get some relief from the no bail policies, the catch and release for the criminals, and these just lunatics that are out on the street protesting and assaulting ICE every night.
Yeah. Well, where to start on that? Yeah, it's just Trump is so on top of this, and I think that when the Insurrection Act comes around and when we start nailing down, we've been pleading for arrests, we've been screaming for arrests, you and me, and all the MAGA conservative base, and we're seeing the arrests. There's nothing more fun than watching 1,800 pounds of ICE beef smothering in a rugby scrum some guy in a man bun and mom jeans. There's nothing more fun than that, and we're enjoying that. The proof of the pudding in those kinds of arrests, which are coming, maybe not as fast as we want, but there are 400 Texas National Guard going to Chicago, and they're going to get there today, I think. So the arrest should increase, but the proof of the pudding will be what happens to them in court. And if we're arresting them and not absolutely crushing them in court with federal charges, then it's all for naught. And then we have to go back to, okay, we tried the localized simpleton arrests. Now we have to go back to our screaming for high level arrests and the arrests of this guy, right? The arrest of clown Fauci. What's happening with that? Okay, that should have been done. The pardon's no good. Otto Penn president signed it. This guy needs to be indicted immediately. Letitia Adams is not enough for mortgage fraud. We got to get going on some of the high level people. So, the arrests need to come faster and furiously, as you and I have been crying out for.
Yeah. Well, allegedly we got, I think, Comey finally being arraigned tomorrow. We'll see if that happens. We're going to get to that story here in a minute. But yeah, it is just that's my biggest disappointment right now. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek claims federal agents in Portland are antagonizing protesters. I actually had to check to make sure this is the right picture of her this morning. I thought maybe they made a mistake because that seriously looks like a man.
Yes,
a limp-wristed man like many hosts on MSNBC. But I thought maybe they had the wrong picture up. But yeah, once again, taking a stand for the criminals over the victims in its city. We'll just go with that. And again, blaming the feds for the crime Antifa and others are committing. It's their fault. It's, once again, blaming the victim. She can't control. They're totally, the whole city of Portland is owned by Antifa, even the police officers, as we saw. Same with Eugene, Oregon. Now, they did finally drop the charges against Nick Sorter, but still, let's see them file something against all these violent Antifa. They've all been identified, the ones that have been assaulting reporters there, and they refuse to file charges on any of them. They are 100% in the tank for these violent criminals, and once again, against our federal law enforcement that are only enacting the will of the people, removing these invaders that are here within our country. And like I said earlier, it's only the violent ones right now. I wish we were rounding up people, going door to door, ripping them away from their families and deporting them. I mean, that's what I voted for. That's what I want to see. I want to see everybody deported. I don't care if it's a 2-year-old, a family just trying to live in peace, whoever. It's time to clear out the poison here and get back to putting America first.
I just can't believe a major American state, well, not a major American state, but an American state has a governor like Tina Kotek. This is crazy. I mean, look at her. You pointed out that she looks like a man. It used to be that Bull Dyke lesbians were more manly than she is. She's like a low T Bull Dyke lesbian. Usually they had all the earmarks. They got dressed up, the short hair. They got dressed up. They would talk tough and everything. But they were the ones who were supposed to be the pitchers in their little bedromantic relationship. And they're not. She's like, there's something weird going on with the personas of lesbians. It's like the weak ones are dressing up and acting tough and wearing big shoulder pads. And the stronger ones are kind of fading into the background, not saying anything and acting, putting on aprons and making cookies. The whole thing is like the weirdest thing ever. And so, and agreed, the MSNBC thing, like Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow, and now this lady, have all three ever been seen in the same room together? Or is it going to be like a Mission Impossible reveal where they pull off the mask and they're all Rachel Maddow? I mean, it's like the strangest thing ever. And so these are the people that they put in charge. No, actually, I know you say that a lot, but I come from the place that says these are stolen elections, and the poor people in Oregon and New York and Washington State are not dumb enough to elect people like this, because nobody could be that dumb. Nobody. And so you take a look at that woman, and it's just patently obvious that she has no business being governor.
I agree there, but see, I guess I just don't have as much faith in the people, especially New York. Like, they're getting what they asked for. But Portland's the other perfect example. I mean, there's a video I didn't want to torture you guys with of all these aged out hippies singing "This Land Is Your Land." It was going all over X yesterday. Everybody's making fun of it. as they wheel them out of their retirement homes. But that's why I think people like this get in, is you have these people that are just out of touch with the rest of the world. They still want to look back at their peace protests in the 1970s, think, oh, that's how we changed the world. And then they get out there here, they're in over their head. They have no idea what they're protesting against, but they know they want to be on the left. They just haven't realized yet they're on the wrong side of history.
So when I'm in New York, whenever I go back, you'd be amazed at how many MAGA 100% certified people there are there. New Yorkers aren't like, I mean, I can't speak for the blue-haired Jewish ladies on the Upper East Side who are always voting for Democrats against their own self-interest, against their very existence. I mean, they'd go out and march with the pro-Palestinian protesters, the rioters, except they'd probably get killed on the spot. So it's like the gay community supporting Palestine. If Palestine were ever in charge anywhere over here, they'd be hung up on a crane. So
they'd be thrown off rooftops like confetti.
So I'm just kind of like, I'm trying to coordinate what I'm seeing with my eyes and what I feel when I go back and visit New York, and what's undoubtedly happening, the stealing of elections. And this, I love this thing that you mentioned about this land is your land, this land is my land. See, they're going on to other kind of kids songs after Kumbaya because they've been so well nailed to the floor about Kumbaya. I'm just waiting for If I Had a Hammer. That's one of my personal favorites.
Oh, I'm sure.
If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. Kind of Pete Seeger type freedom, and marching with Joan Baez and Bob Dylan with Martin Luther King. If Martin Luther King had seen what the people that were following him then are doing now, he'd be absolutely outraged.
Yeah. Well, again, like I think in a lot of these states, because the other big problem is the Republicans don't come out to vote. And I don't disagree that they're stealing elections and stealing votes. But when I've gone through this with people in California and other places over and over again, that, they know people that are conservative and they don't see how their community would vote this way. But when you flood it with illegal aliens and you have these just demented leftists that refuse to face reality, not to mention all the Trustafarians that are out there with Mamdani and others, they just have the votes. I mean, that's the problem. Not to say there aren't other shenanigans going on, but they're the ones that are active. They're the ones that get out in the street. And then Republicans sit home in these areas. And that's why they lose. Same with Chicago. I've been talking with different people there, because a lot of these weak, middle of the road rhino Republicans, when they go out and run, it doesn't energize the base, and people don't leave their house because they just don't want another failure there. They want somebody that's actually a fighter. That's the other big problem, when it comes to the blue states and why people don't get out and actually vote. It's because they can't get excited about anybody. And until that changes, I think we are going to end up with, Mamdani there, and we're going to end up with lunatics like this running states. It's a combination of reasons. We do need to take a quick break, hear from our sponsors, and we'll be right back with more.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day, and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Life can be pretty unpredictable, filled with good days and not so good days. And sometimes, the only difference between the two is your level of preparedness. The Jase Case lets you be better prepared for whatever comes your way. It contains antibiotics and other prescription medications so that you aren't caught unprepared. With the Jase Case, you are able to get your prescription medication before the unpredictable happens, allowing you to turn those not so good days into great ones. Go to jase.com now and get your own Jase Case.
Thank you for staying with us. And again, the best way to support our program and all the great programs here on Ex American News is by supporting our sponsors. You can do that by going to jace.com or jacemedical.com. Use code INSURRECTION for an additional discount, and get yourself and your family a Jace case. This isn't a Band-Aid kit or a boo-boo box. This contains antibiotics, non-narcotic pain relievers, steroids, and other drugs, prescription medication that could be necessary or even life-saving during the time of an emergency. So whether that's your state being overrun by Antifa because the governor and the mayor choose to back them over the citizens, a financial meltdown, natural disaster, foreign invasion, maybe China decides to finally cut off our drug supply, having things on hand now, better to have it, not need it, than need it, not have it. These are relatively inexpensive anyway, especially for the amount of protection these kits provide. They have a variety of other kits available on their website at jace.com. But again, this is something that is better to have to protect your family now in case help isn't on the way. So again, go to jace.com or jacemedical.com to use code INSURRECTION. You'll get an additional discount, and that's a great way to support all the work we do over here at Ex American News. All right, well, let's jump into it because we still got a lot to cover, and we had an interesting off-air conversation regarding this. But Scott Bessent has joined the effort to uncover funders of Antifa violence, Carolyn Levitt says. Yeah, it seems like you should have some first-hand knowledge of this. So hopefully he's highly effective in this role and there's not a conflict of interest.
I, for one, am watching Scott Bessent very closely, and I encourage other MAGA conservatives to watch him very closely too. What we don't ever hear about is the 11 years he spent working for George Soros. So I'm watching him and making sure he behaves himself. If he starts pushing back on the president or seems to be deviously lancing around in a furtive way, I'm going to start lowering the boom on him and speaking out more and more. So he's done a good job as far as I can tell so far. But 11 years working for Soros, and he wasn't just a coffee boy. He was based over in London when Soros started to try to break the Bank of England and destroy the English economy, which he also tried to do over in Asia. The Asia Tiger economy, he tried to destroy that by going after the Thai baht. So, it's just, I think if he's totally changed and he's genuinely had a change from that Soros kind of mindset, great, welcome, because he'll also understand the Soros mindset and be able to use it against him. That would be fabulous. But I want to see that he does a lot to help get George Soros, because that's perpetrator number one, George Soros. So let's see how much he can deliver on Soros. He should have some confidential paperwork. Of course, when it comes to treason, there's no such thing as confidential paperwork for George Soros. That has to be he has to be blowing the whistle the whole time on Soros and producing documents and relating conversations with the dates and everything. So I'm hopeful here, but still very wary.
Well, yeah, and what I'd really like to see him doing, and immediately, if possible, start revoking the tax-exempt status on a lot of these 501c3s and NGOs and other things that we know are funding leftist terrorism, not just here, but around the world. And literal terrorism when it comes to Soros. As you guys saw, we had Ryan Morrow on last week, and I'm going to actually try to get him booked again either another day this week or next week to kind of go over things in more detail. But some of these were going to literal terrorist organizations overseas, jihadi groups, or we're getting laundered through other NGOs, and then going to literal jihadis, funding literal Islamic terrorism overseas. And then here, Soros isn't the only one. I listened to an interesting report on Neville Singham yesterday, and how funding a lot of these groups that were going after TPUSA and other places with Chinese dollars, and essentially that he's never been held accountable for that. That he's acting as a foreign agent here on U.S. soil, taking dollars directly from Beijing and then dumping them into various leftist NGOs and other entities here in the United States. Again, these people need to get prosecuted. There's direct lines you can draw from both of them, probably Gates, probably Reid Hoffman. Well, we know Reid Hoffman to the Tesla terrorism, but there are direct lines now that can be drawn from where they're moving money to acts of terrorism on U.S. soil and elsewhere. So we need real accountability. You start by removing tax-exempt status, investigating donors, and prosecuting people, especially the big ones that are donating to these entities and to these NGOs, places like Arabella Consulting and others that are used to then filter the money out to the ground. They've been finding direct ties to Antifa cells in various countries from Neville Singham. And again, something needs to actually be done about this. We have to put a stop to it now, cut their legs out from under them. And that includes investigating the DSA that about 6 months ago, was it 6 months or a year? I think I'm confusing myself. We'll just call it a year ago. Started partnering with little Antifa cells on the ground. I just blanked. My brain just shut down a second ago. They had a name for it that was sort of clever about these partnerships that they had with their allies in Antifa that were fighting back on the ground.
I'll get to the CCP in a second. Just to tie up one last thread on Scott Bessent. One of the things that really has my investigative journalist antennae up and wobbling is that the left is doing nothing to go after Scott Bessent. Now, and that's because it's George Soros he worked for. So this brings up the rather alarming possibility that Trump has been infiltrated again and hired somebody who's been sent in a la John Bolton, a la Bill Barr, who is meant to destroy and harm his administration and not do anything too outwardly bad for months or years, and then at the end just destroy everything they can, like a monkey gone wild in a cavern. So the left would, if they could get rid of his Secretary of Treasury and he truly had this reversal and this epiphany, then the left would be saying, "Oh, but you work for George Soros," and they'd be making a big deal out of it every single day. You don't hear a peep out of them about Scott Bessent and Soros right now. That's tying up that thread. Now, regarding the CCP, you bring this up and it's perfect. There's a whole litany, a massive mountain of CCP stuff that we're totally unresolved on. The weather balloons, come on. That should have been cleanup on Isle America in the first 5 minutes. That should have happened right after J6. I mean, maybe I'm embellishing a little there, but it should have happened early in the administration. What happened with the weather balloons? The drones in New Jersey and all over the creation, obviously a CCP psyop or a CCP mission. The farming there, you only hear it once in a while, all the farmland that they bought up, and the police stations, the Chinese police stations in New York and big cities. And then lastly, the way the Biden administration worked glove in hand, really cooperated in a very subservient way with President Xi to bring down Miles Guo, who was essentially the Chinese Trump, who helped became a billionaire through building all the Beijing Olympic buildings and everything, and then became too rich and powerful when he was speaking out against Xi that he had to come over here. He was affiliated with Bannon, so he's a natural target of Biden and the left. So, you bring up the Chinese, and there is far too much stuff going on under the radar. There's far too many people on the Democrats on the payroll. And we got to start locking people up for treason, like Swallowwell and, too bad we can't resurrect Dianne Feinstein, but certainly Pelosi. These people are all committing, Fang Fang. Why do we know more about Fang Fang? I mean, come on, let's go, guys.
She's dead, right?
No, I didn't know Fang Fang's dead. Can we have a little memorial service with candlelight vigil?
She went back to China when she fled the U.S. and then died in a mysterious plane crash. So they wanted her shut up. Yeah, it happened several years ago.
Mysterious, like Secretary Ron Brown during the Clinton administration. Yeah, it's a mysterious plane crash. Well, I'll tell you what. This is a perfect opportunity for us, instead of celebrating and being like, "Yeah, Fang Fang's dead. Yeah, let's have a candlelight vigil. We'll be genuine about it. We'll be respectful. Boy, this poor young lady is dead. Let's really show the difference between us and Looney Tunes Democrats."
We'll have it on the 2-year anniversary of her death. I think that's coming up. I think it's about 2 years ago she met her fate. So
hey, I'm sure at some point she was just a regular little girl, and I'm sure she grew up to be at some point a decent woman. But somehow along the way she was corrupted by the Communist Party in China, and so that's how she ruined her life and she turned up dead.
Well,
but at some point, remember,
anybody that's here from China, if they issue a visa, you're agreeing to serve the CCP if they call upon you. So that's part of their visa requirements. Keep that in mind. But yeah, federal agents arrest Chicago gang leader for allegedly ordering $10,000 murder for hire plot on a Border Patrol officer. Now, we covered this yesterday, but I learned a lot of new details about this. And this is, I think, a bigger problem than a lot of people are... It deserves a little more attention than it's been getting. Like, yeah, it's horrible this is happening. That was kind of the way people treated it yesterday. All these cartels are putting bounties out there. Well, it's actually, in my opinion, even worse. This guy was a Latin king, like mid-level leader, which means somebody further up the chain authorized this. And that isn't like a lot of the violent street gangs in Chicago and elsewhere. They're much more organized, like a mafia or a mob. So they wouldn't be getting into this fight unless they really mean it. And that means we're probably going to see a lot more of this. This is probably the one that we found out about, the one that we know about. And yes, they already scooped the guy that put the bounty out there up, and he's being prosecuted. But if the Latin Kings are involved in this, I bet there's going to be a lot more of these uncovered or that are successful, unfortunately, before they're stopped.
Yeah, so like Antifa, BLM, Code Pink, La Raza, as you mentioned the other day so perfectly. We don't talk enough about La Raza. You're absolutely right. Like those groups, they're all obviously domestic terrorist groups that are here to hurt this country. And membership in one of these groups should be the death sentence. And it's so easy. And Latin Kings and the Mexican Mafia are frequently left off the list of it's all about TDA and Tren de Aragua right now. And you've got to let's not forget MS-13 and the Latin Kings and the Mexican Mafia. All four of those are gangs, and membership is even more obvious there than membership in Antifa, where you could mistakenly scoop up a goth walking the street wearing Doc Martens and black with a nose ring who wasn't a member of Antifa. It's unlikely, but you could make that mistake. There's no making the mistakes because these people envelop themselves in these sick tattoos with, DLS de la Muerta, Day of the Dead tattoos with skulls and stuff. I mean, they're obviously members. So just pick them up. You're a member of a gang. Straight to the death row. Straight to death row. That's it. No trial. We don't have to convict them of some crime like trying to kill ICE agents, although that's bad enough. And I think that it's just we've got to crack down on these people. We've got to expand the list of domestic terrorists, and really go to work on these people. These are. I don't know if anybody saw the picture of this guy, the guy that's the Latin King leader. But he's got like a pinhead. He's got like a pea-sized head. Of course, this means small brain syndrome, and he's a mental defective. That's how he gets into the gang and becomes a leader, right? Their leaders are the sickest of all of them. And President Trump would quite likely call him low IQ, but that would be missing half the boat on him. Low sloping forehead. He's obviously got a unacceptably small brain. And so we need to start calling these people what they are, mental defectives. They're not just evil, although they're definitely evil. They're not just mentally ill, although they're definitely that. They are mental defectives. They're like stupid people. And so they've got to be pulled off the streets. The picture of this guy is just shocking. He's got like the smallest head ever. And so, I hate to make fun of somebody, but it's not even making fun. It's a warning, a serious warning about people with small heads. If you see a small head walking around, cross over to the other side of the street, okay? Just for your own safety and your family's safety.
But putting all these transnational criminal organizations that have been operating in Chicago and New York and other places around the country, putting them all on the terrorist watch list. They're funded internationally. Their leadership a lot of times is outside of the country that may or may not be beyond our reach, depending on what failed state they're staying in. But something has to be done. If we really want to clean these cities up and clean up the crime, we have to go after the organized crime as well as the petty crime. These are the people that become a fixture, an unfortunate, evil, dark fixture in a lot of these cities that facilitate the human trafficking, the drug smuggling, and everything else. For the most part, TDA may be an exception to that. Most of these organizations have been the ones facilitating this pathway into our cities for 30, 40, 50 plus years, some of them. Putting them all on these terror watch lists and actually taking it seriously. Again, that's been my big problem. What's the point of putting Antifa on the terror watch list? We're not going to round up everybody and charge them with terrorism. that should be exactly how we're handling it right now, or the list is meaningless. But that's what we need to be doing, and this deserves a serious crackdown, like, immediately. Well, let me pull this next one up for you guys here, because Rose City Antifa co-founders discovered living in Sweden after fleeing Portland, and they're not the only Antifa fleeing. We also have this. Mask off. Rutgers Antifa professor claims he's fleeing America after threats. So let me go through some of the stuff from Professor Mark Bray here. He says, only mass anti-fascism, legal or not, can save us. So he's talking about only like Antifa in mass attacking ICE, attacking everybody. And then at the end, he says, answers this guy's question, asks him, what specifically does that mean? He says, utilize the Second Amendment to its fullest intent. So again, making direct calls for violence, and now he's fleeing the country too. I hope they put a hold on this guy's passport, arrest him at the airport, and then drag him off and prosecute him.
Extradition is the only acceptable remedy for these people. I took one look at Mark Bray, and I immediately knew we were dealing with an unstable, unhinged personality. What he's doing teaching our children is another good question we need to ask. And we need to be getting rid of these people, sending in Terminex, like Terminex type fumigators and vermin removers, insect removal companies, to get rid of them from our colleges and our schools, because they're in our elementary schools as well. Also, not just by looking at them or looking at the size of or shape of their head can we tell what these people are, but also by this guy's name, Mark Bray. That conjures up him braying like the jackass he is, right? And of course, the jackass translates to a Democrat, because some fool, while they were saying, oh, let's call ourselves Democrats, like we're interested in democracy. I don't know, was it Andrew Jackson? Probably. And so instead, they think they're clever doing that, but at the same time, they pick as their logo a jackass. Okay, it's so perfect. And so Mark Bray is braying like a jackass. And as for the guy who fled to Sweden, let's just flee him right on back, because Sweden's part of NATO and Trump is all over NATO, and he doesn't even need a phone call. He'll send a text to get that guy back.
Yeah, well, he's got dual citizenship, but his wife's not so lucky. She's a U.S. citizen. So maybe just grab her back, and then he can come try to rescue her, but I doubt he has the stones for that. Before we got started this morning, Bill, you mentioned you wanted to get into something, wanted to grab the soapbox for a minute. So let's do that, and I got one last item to cover.
Thanks. So kind of the Bill's Corner, first Bill's Corner installment. I was sitting in a doctor's, waiting for a doctor, as we all do at some point in our lives, and I glanced over at the table. It was absolutely groaning with magazines on it, as we all do. And I came up, I spied this magazine. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can see it. It's a Smithsonian magazine. And my first response was, what kind of nonsense masquerading as trusted science is going to be in here? And so I looked, and it's got, you can see it, the cover story is about a place called Tuvalu, which is a small island in the Pacific between Hawaii and Australia. And above it in black, it says, what does it say? Ground zero for global warming. And then underneath it says, Tuvalu, that sinking feeling. And it's got some guy native riding a scooter. And so I opened it up and went through it. And, I was like, okay, let me just kind of get out a highlighter. I didn't have one with me, but it was a mental highlighter. And I went through the whole article, which was extensive and included pictures like with lunatics like this in dashikis and talking about how their fishing had gone down. And, if I had been talking to them, each one of these people is a climate change nutcase. And, of course, I was just struck by it, because I wanted to explain to them that, this is a very common phenomenon in the Pacific. Islands are completely subsumed every day by the ocean. It's like not new. And this article is filled with the usual references, carbon footprint and blah, 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 and the weather changes and oceans, and all this stuff. And then I looked at the data. I was like, boy, they've been going after us for a long time on this, trying to convince us it's true. And then I looked at the date on it, August 2004. This is, I think, around the time that the inventor of the information superhighway, the internet, Al Gore, had not even put out his Oscar-winning movie, The Inconvenient Truth, which was designed to. I have a friend who took his young kids to see it. I was like, why would you take your young kids to see a movie about the end of our world? You know, it's like. So anyway, that's the first installment of Bill's Corner. I found this and I thought I should share.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, I love these pictures you see sometimes where they show the sea level at low tide 100 years ago and then at low tide today, and it's exactly the same place. It seems to be very selective where we're getting sea level rise. And, you know, again, a lot of these low-lying islands, you know, one big storm coming through is all it takes to disappear huge swaths of their beaches. I mean, it still happens today in Florida. Same as sometimes you have big deposits when you have a storm come in and it brings a lot of debris and sand. Like, these are natural, normal things that happen. You know, right now, the ocean levels aren't rising. They're not going to be rising anytime soon. And right now, you know, we're basically forcing people in the third world into poverty all over 1.5 degrees of supposed climate change over 100 years. So, and again, the guy that came up with this whole sea level rise thing, this is another good one to get into. He has admitted numerous times the original formula that they keep using, that there are massive errors in. When he put this stuff out originally, that they forgot to account for the shrinkage from ice back to liquid water, or it wasn't accounted for properly in the formula. So he's still a climatologist or whatever, but he's also gone out there and admitted, you know, these people are extremely dishonest. They misrepresent the data, even though he's tried to make this correction numerous times, put the correct formula out there. They still won't use it. Again, I don't agree with his premise over the long run anyway, that somehow it's going to flood the planet unless something crazy happens outside of what's happening today. But the fact of the matter is that this guy is within their own movement and just wants to be honest about things, like give people the real facts and data, and they just refuse to. They ignore it. You know, it's like the East Anglia emails that prove they were cooking the books on all these sensors all around the world. It had a formula in there that did not account for drops in temperature, would remove that data essentially or undercount it. And anything, even if there was a sensor they put on the tarmac at a runway where it's showing 20 degrees higher than the actual air temperature, they would make sure to include that. But anything that showed temperature drops, no, we're going to dissolve that data and exclude it away. So it's always been a sham from the very beginning. Well, I got one last video I want to play real quick for you guys before we wrap up here. But this is Senator Kennedy's predictions on the government shutdown.
Could do likewise, but it's not personal for me, but I don't like almost anything that Chuck Schumer is doing. I don't like it. I mean, it's a direct contract. He wants to move the country in the wrong direction.
I don't hate anybody.
Neither do I.
And I know you don't. And when I say my prayers, I ask God, don't let me hate. I don't hate Chuck. Senator Schumer, I know him well. This shutdown's not about policy. It's about politics. And Senator Schumer, this is what's going on. He is trying to get the loon wing, the socialist wing of the Democratic Party, which is in control, to love him. And they will never love him. They won't. He'd be better off doing what he did back in March, and just calling it like he saw it and keeping government open. Because what he's saying, we're going to keep government shut down until you, the Republicans, and President Trump give the Democrats $1.5 trillion, and they're going to tell us how to spend it.
We just had John Thune on, Majority Leader of the Senate, who said we can't do that.
And we're not going to do that.
You cannot do that.
We're not going to. I mean,
and Schumer has to know that.
And he does know that.
Yeah.
And let me tell you how this will end. It will end eventually when Senator Schumer goes to 6 or 8 of his members and the Democrats and says, do me a favor, vote to open it back up. I may have to criticize you. I'm not going to vote with you. But I need a way out of this. I need an offering.
That's the offering.
And that's what's going to happen. But he's got to be careful, because if it looks contrived, he's blown it. And he can't look like he's having a mutiny. But that's how we'll open back.
This news update was sponsored by August.
You know, I think Schumer's dug himself into a hole. He has no way to get out. You know, when the shutdown started, I thought it would be a few days of performance theater and then they'd back out of it. But now I'm really not so sure. Allegedly, today we're going to get 100,000 government employees resigning. I don't know if that's going to materialize or not, but I hope Trump does fire the 750 to 850,000 that they're talking about as emergency measures during this shutdown. It's time to teach these leftists a lesson, and we know most of these government employees are dedicated Democrats because they live in D.C., and we know that 96% of the population is off its rocker and is either Democrat, socialist, or communist. So I'm fine with it.
Well, I certainly don't hate Senator John Kennedy. I think he's great. But I do beg to differ on the idea of not hating anybody. I'm sorry. Right after Erica Kirk forgave her husband's murderer, President Trump then said, I don't love my enemies. I hate my enemies. I'm not afraid to admit that. And it's not surprising that another type A alpha male New Yorker like me is going to make the same statement. I know I'm being unchristian. I hope I can be forgiven by my Lord. But there's a whole long list of people I'm hating on right now because they're trying to destroy us. I would ask John Kennedy, does he hate Hitler? If he's going to pray for Hitler, I'd like to hear him go in depth into that, or Jeffrey Dahmer or Satan. You can't pray for Satan. I'm sorry. There's no praying for Satan. You can't do that. You got to take a side in this. And so I'm sure he's being a good Christian, a better Christian than me. But I started hating these people around Obama's first term, and I've continued it. It's a shame that these people put so much hate in our pure hearts. And so, wow, I'm apologetic about it, but I'm not going to bow and scrape about it either. I'm going to be totally upfront about it. No, these are people to be hated because they're trying to destroy us. They're trying to destroy our country, and they're godless heathens. They hate God. If they could kill God, they'd kill God. So I'm sorry, that's unacceptable. I will hate them for that.
Well, like they say, I guess it's hard to hate the sin but love the sinner. But yeah, these are monsters destroying our country. Something has to be done. But I want to thank you for joining again today. To our audience, please like, share, and subscribe. Help us to grow so we can bring more people the news the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear. And we'll be back.